it's really important to show your clients how much you value them.
Mm-hmm.
So, big believer in pop buys with something they would actually want, not like a here's an ice cream scoop because I
Yeah.
have the scoop on real estate. Like,
Yeah.
if you do that, that's okay. It's not my vibe. It probably works for you.
I can think
But
of somebody in my mind who would actually do that. But yeah, like
yes,
that's just their
and
sense
that's
of
all
humor
right.
as well, right?
Yes, yep, exactly.
So if that's your
But
brand, maybe that's a thing. But
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I love ice cream. So, yeah, really showing that you appreciate and value those past clients because they should be the pillars that kind of feed you your next referrals.
Welcome to America's Inner Circle, the podcast that dives deep into the stories, strategies, and secrets of the most successful real estate agents in the game. Whether you're an aspiring agent, a seasoned pro, or just love a good success story, you're in the right place. Each episode, we sit down with top agents who share their journey from the ground up, how they overcame challenges, seized opportunities, and made their mark in the competitive world of real estate. Ready to learn from the best? Let's unlock the keys to real estate success together. Here is your peek into the inner circle.
Hi, my name is Mel Allen, and I'm the host of the Inner Circle podcast. This is a podcast where we're going to dive into the stories of some very successful real estate agents in the country. If you want to learn how to establish yourself as a top agent, well, you're in the right place. And today, we are honored to have Molly Branson from the Washington, D.C. area. Molly, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, you have a pretty interesting journey into real estate. One of the questions I often ask people is, kind of like, what would you be doing if it wasn't this? I already kind of found that out because I checked your YouTube channel out a little bit. And so you didn't start in real estate, but I guess what I'll ask is what kind of made that transition happen? We'll fill in the what you used to do, later on in the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, honestly, it was just like kind of a cross points when it was after college. I had a plan. I was going to go into nursing school.
Yep.
But I just had so much student debt and I couldn't imagine putting more onto that and monthly payments and everything. So that's why I decided, I mean, I don't know how at the time I was like, oh, I know, I'll do an unpaid, like unsalaried sales position. That seems wise. Like
Right.
looking
Yeah.
back, I don't know how I made
Anybody
that
who's done
call.
sales knows exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. Yes. So I just kind of decided I dove in head first. Granted, I was like still waitressing to save up money. And yeah, that just kind of carried me through the first year or so. And now here I am.
Yeah. And you've been doing this for what is it, about 9 years now?
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be 10 in June of 2025. Yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations on almost hitting that 10-year mark. Um,
Thanks.
what was the first deal that you did like? What was it that kind of happened as you put that together?
It's funny that you asked that because I was literally talking to my husband about this 2 nights ago. My first deal, I used to work the front desk a lot at my office,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a random phone call from some investor, and those usually don't pan out, but this one, it was a investor from out of state, and he wanted to buy a property in a, not so great area for, I think it was $70,000,
Hmm.
which in my area is like very low, or well below the average. But I think it took me like 3-4 months. It was a very hectic process, but we got it done, and that was my very first deal.
Wow.
Random phone call. Yeah.
And you've come quite a long way from there. We'll get more into that, I'm sure, as we get going here. But after that first sale, and you're like, yes, I can do this, and
Yeah.
this really is a possible thing. I can get paid for doing this. What was it that really kind of pivoted and made you realize this absolutely really is something worth staying on? Was it that first one, or?
Honestly, I think it was just my overall excitement for
Mm-hmm.
being in this industry. Like I was in the office practically 7 days a week, hosting open houses, just trying to meet as many people as possible. And I just kind of realized that I was having a good time. Like I wasn't even closing deals at the moment, but I knew I really enjoyed doing what I was doing and I felt like I was being productive and that just kind of felt good. So that's why I just kept on going. It took me a while to actually get my first deal done. I did a ton of rentals in the beginning as well, which are great. But yeah, I think it's just the overall excitement.
Yeah.
I'll be
Well,
my
I
own
guess they
boss.
say, do what you love. You'll never work a day in your life. So,
That's right. Does it feel I definitely work days now, so
right, right, right. Yeah. Yeah. So
yes.
the shine is maybe rubbed off a little bit, but
Yes.
at the same time, you've got some really good feathers in your hat. I mean, you are you were 30 under 30 by was that the National Realtors Association?
National Association of
Oh,
Realtors, yep.
sorry, National Association of Realtors.
All
So
good.
you got that feather in your cap. You
Yep.
I think I saw that you were the youngest. Was it president or vice president of a group?
Yes, I was the youngest, vice president of the brokerage. Granted, that is still on my bio on my website, and now I'm 32, so I don't know if it's still accurate, but 4 years ago it was.
Right. Things change, but at the time, totally,
At the time, I
totally
was like,
true.
"This feels right." Yeah.
Well, as you've gone through that journey, as you've gone through now, 9, almost 10 years, what has been one of the most rewarding things that has happened, either a deal or a project or something you put together that really was just like, man, this is a cherry on the top so far?
Honestly, there's so many, just from buyers and sellers and developers. I think in general, the most rewarding clients are probably my first time home buyers,
Hmm.
especially when we can get creative. Like kind of I always try to, I don't know if push is the right word, but just kind of get clients to open their eyes a little bit to at least the investment side of things. So I've had a few clients that thought they could afford one price point, but explained multifamilies, duplexes, that type of thing, and how that can allow you to be qualified for a higher price point, but also your
Right.
monthly payment will be lower than the other house. And a lot of people have ended up doing that. So I think that that is the most like exciting thing, is because now you're also not only a owner of your own place, but also you're an investor too. So I think that
Right.
that's pretty cool when that
Yeah, and you've
happens.
got income from your the place that you own, so
Yeah,
that's definitely
it's
great.
huge.
On the flip side of that, what are some particular challenges, or maybe it looked like a failure, wasn't a failure, or something that you overcame, like a
I mean, I think that sometimes my most challenging clients are my developer clients.
Mhm.
Um, just because they're when I am working with a seller and a buyer, it's typically their first or second or third time doing a transaction, not necessarily something they do every single day.
Right.
So they don't have like that ego, which isn't a bad thing, but a lot of my developers have an ego and they don't necessarily listen to like floor plan or finish or pricing advice. And I think that that has been the most challenging.
Mhm.
So I've just tried to rework, because you really have to learn, every type of client needs different communication styles. So I've really tried to rework how I communicate with my developers, like less fluff, just more direct. This is the numbers to back it up. And that I found is gains a lot more respect versus like, I think that we should do this. So
Yeah. Yeah, can't
yeah.
say I think or we should. You're like, this
Yes.
is what needs to
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
We're doing this. Yeah.
But then the first time home buyer, you're just like, well, maybe
Yeah. I'm like,
that's
let me
not the
hold
best
your
approach.
hand. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Have you put together, kind of any deals that felt like it was a big risk, like where you were really stepping out on a ledge, and did it pay off, or did it fall through? Like,
I mean, I'm going through one right now on my own personal side of things. I bought a house in DC, a row house, and as I mentioned, developers can be sometimes frustrating to work with, even though love them.
mhm,
So I decided to develop myself. So I'm turning this house into 3 condos, and it is a very large project. It's going on for like a year and a half at this point, and I'm definitely learning why, just the stressors of being that developer. So I think that's making me better at advising those developers. But it's a big risk. And I don't know if it's going to pan out yet. I
yeah.
really hope it does. But so far to date, that's been my riskiest move, is, taking a step into the development side of things.
Are you also kind of like acting as your own general contractor? Are you hiring that out, or?
Thankfully, no, because it is such a large project. Like I've done smaller flips, but this one is really big. I brought on a developer who I've worked with for many years in the past,
Very
and she's
nice.
fantastic. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
fun
it's good.
working with her on the other side.
Good to have those relationships. Yeah, being your own general
Yeah.
contractor, especially for a big project, is
Yes.
is something that
Yes.
not everybody's built for. I'll just say that.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
I mean, you've already, I think, kind of touched on this, and I think it's one thing that a lot of people, realize in real estate is that you have to communicate with, your different clients in very different ways, and even from client to client. Would you say that's your unique approach that sets you apart from some others in the industry, or, is there more to it?
I think so. I don't necessarily, I hope everybody does it. So that's what I mean. Why I don't know if it's very unique, but maybe it is. But it definitely is an important skill to develop because you'll just be able to connect with so many more people if you learn how to communicate with different types of people. You can't be the same person all the time. Maybe that sounds weird, but chameleons
No,
are good.
I completely understand. Yeah. We had a house not too long ago sell across the street from us, and the realtor, every time he saw me, he wanted to come over and talk to me. And I just had to say, buddy, look,
Uh,
you love to have 20, 30-minute conversations. I just don't have the time. Um,
Read the room. You got to
yeah,
read the
you got to
room.
read the room. It's really important to know, to understand, when you maybe have said too much or asked too much. And I think that
Yes.
that's a wonderful skill for people in real estate, especially, to learn, and to, kind of look for those signs, maybe that somebody's asking a question in the subtext that, you know,
Yeah.
that maybe they're afraid almost to ask out loud, but
Yeah. 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 For sure.
how do you stay motivated? How do you, when you've got any of those slowdowns that, they do happen in the market, how do you keep yourself, pushing forward and pressing forward on things?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two answers to that question. Number one, I realized that I am a more competitive person than I thought I was. I like finding the deal and getting the deal done, and it really is. I don't know. I view my income obviously as potential for future investments too. It's not just like, okay, great, now I'm going to buy a new car. It's mainly to fuel this next side of my business, which I'm gaining more excitement for, the developing and investing side. So that's kind of what has fueled my, whenever it's slow, I'm like, okay, we need this to fuel that. But also, I am trying to lean into the slow times. It is stressful when it's busy and it's stressful when it's not busy. So I'm going to try to, I'm a new mom. So when it's not busy, maybe it's just the world saying like, hey, it's, you have this time now to be with your family. So I'm trying to focus on that too.
Yeah. Do you find that during some of those times you're, taking advantage of some of the education, opportunities that your free time gives you?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think I recently downloaded like a floor plan class. That's something I'm probably going to do over the holidays. But yeah, always trying to learn, and there's so much to learn constantly. So whenever, yeah, downtime is usually a good place to do that too.
Nice. Yeah, then you're ready when
Yeah,
things start to
exactly.
come back up. Now, there's obviously there are probably some times when you've been presented with something that maybe was a little questionable, a little, somebody trying you to toe a line. How do you kind of keep those values or principles? How do you guide that in your daily work?
I think you just got to be straightforward with people and tell them why a decision isn't the best decision, or maybe how it's not the right thing to do.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes they'll listen and sometimes they won't. But if they don't, then I will distance myself. But I really think you just have to voice your opinion. And yeah, if they don't listen, it's kind of a red flag for future deals. Yeah.
Yeah, the distancing yourself, I can definitely understand that, and yeah, people sometimes tell you who they are, and it's good to believe them.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you just brought up something that I think is pretty important, and the slow times are one of the ways that you can do that. But even during the busy times, how do you balance, being a new mom or just being a person when you've got all of this stuff that you're juggling? What is your, kind of your ritual of preserving that time for yourself?
Honestly, I think what I have been trying to, so my son is 9 months old now,
Hmm.
and I just ended up bringing him to a lot of showings, and that does present other challenges, but it's been great overall. Like my clients love it as well. I always ask them ahead of time too, if, of course, if it's all right.
Sure.
Um, but I think I've just been trying to include him more in my like business side of thing, at least the front facing stuff. And that's been a hit. And I'm just excited to like look back and, he's gonna say my first house tours were when he was 3 months old, But personal time is definitely lacking. And I don't have a solution for that yet.
I think everybody handles it a little bit differently. I mean, some
Yeah.
people Some people it's sports or yoga, and some people it's just taking a few minutes to read or listen to an audio podcast or something. So,
For
but
sure. Sometimes honestly, sometimes I get into my car and I'm like, "I don't want any music, I don't want an audiobook, I just want silence," and it's very nice.
I actually completely understand that. I
That's sad, yeah.
a couple of times a week, I'm just like everything off. I just want to hear
Yes,
the
yep,
wind.
yep. Yep.
um, I mean, you've been in this now for again over 9 years. You've probably seen some things come and go. What are some of the biggest changes that you personally are seeing in the real estate industry across that time?
I think just the amount of information available to sellers and buyers. There's so much people can learn online, not only just inventory, looking for their own houses, but just also the process and tips on getting your home ready for the market. So I think that that has kind of changed the role of the agent.
Hmm.
It's less of just opening up doors and finding houses. And it has to be so much more as a guide and someone to get creative and make you think a different way in order to present an opportunity in a new light, or, just you have to be smarter as an agent, honestly, because everyone else is getting smarter. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think if you don't know the information, it's kind of like why would you be there,
yeah.
right? Just
Yeah, and
open
you
up
have
the
to
door.
be creative too. Like, and I think that's because I use like ChatGPT all the time in my business, and I'm sure that's going to impact things even more in every single industry. But it's like the creativity side of things when it comes to like creatively marketing a listing or staging or telling a buyer why one house is better than the other. Here's why. That's going to be more important.
Yeah, I think for a lot of buyers on paper, two houses might be really similar, but you know there could be opportunities, there could be a lot attached that could present future investment opportunities, or there could be differences in how you can use an existing property. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for
and
sure.
and I think that a lot of people need to know that, and so getting that information and making sure you present it can be super helpful to them and to you.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
How do you kind of keep up to date on some of the things that are changing, some of the trends that are coming up in the world of real estate, especially in
That's a
DC? I
good
mean, it seems
question.
like it's an interesting market, compared to some other places I've looked at.
It definitely is, it definitely is, and there are also just tons of realtors in our market too. I feel like I always make the joke that everyone in DC knows someone working in politics, a lawyer, and a real estate agent. Like, there's just so many of us.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Um, but I guess to answer your first question, 'cause I'm not someone who's, like, scouring blogs and trying to figure out what's coming up. I kinda just my brokerage does a really good job of keeping people in the loop about what we should know and what we should focus on. So I think it's really important to have a source that summarizes important things for you, because I don't have the time to scour the internet and figure out what I should be looking out for next, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yep.
definitely. Yeah, that probably sounds like a full-time job in itself, trying to
Yeah.
do that. So, it seems like a lot of folks in real estate, I know some people start out in these, really small boutique firms, and then they feel like they're really not shared a lot of information.
Mhm.
And then I hear that, some of these brokerages where all they do, it seems, is, doing a lot of sharing. Has that been your experience in what you've come across as well?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, so I've been at 3 different brokerages, all varying different sizes, and I will say I think all of them did a really good job about providing, value to their agents. And, I mean, on the subject of how the industry is changing, I mean, I think a broker's role is changing so much more as well. They have to provide so much to their agents because there's so many, brokerages where you can create your own team or brokerage, but it's just a lot less support. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But
Yeah.
I've had a good experience overall.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people, just in my own kind of life and in my own world. And it's nothing against, these boutique firms. I think that their
Yeah.
job is a very different one, right, than a
Yes.
brokerage that you're working with, where brokerages, I think, are also designed to help train people and help bring people up to speed. And at some
Right.
point, you have all the knowledge you need. You have a good team of people that you work with, and that's when, the boutique might be the right thing, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah. True. Very
Are you
true.
are you seeing, especially in DC, are you seeing any real estate trends or any shifts in the market that people should, in your mind, be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, DC proper has been a harder market for our sellers versus the suburbs outside DC in Maryland and Virginia. We're still seeing multiple offers pretty typically for like a detached single family home in Maryland or Virginia. But in DC, it's a much different story. There's just higher inventory, and I think more people are looking for more space at this point. So I think condos, especially if you're an investor as well, I would kind of steer away from condos. They can still be a decent opportunity if you're occupying the home, but
Hmm.
I've just seen slower growth in value for condos across the board in DC.
Yeah. Yeah, there
Yeah.
definitely. I feel like there was a time when I would walk down, the blocks of DC, and the row houses are all in some sort of construction, and it
Yeah.
doesn't look like that anymore. Over the past 10 years, that has really shifted.
Yeah, it
You know,
has. It has, which, is a good or bad thing because we always hear about how there's a housing inventory crisis. But DC, they've also put a lot of rules and the permitting process takes forever. So that
hmm
has made a lot of developers kind of look elsewhere. So,
yeah, yeah. DC has their fees.
yes, they
Uh,
do.
if you know anybody, not to knock it, it's a lovely place in
Yes.
many many ways, and
Yes, it
it's
is.
it's unique, being that it's a district, not a state, and that comes with its own rules. But
For
um,
sure.
for any people who are new, for any people who are kind of aspiring, thinking about real estate, maybe in that position that you were, some time ago, what is a piece of advice that you wish somebody had said to you, pulled you aside and said, "Hey, you know what? Here's what you need to know."
I think I would tell people that you can't be scared to tell others that you're in real estate. My first couple of years, I was a little bit hesitant to kind of blast it out to my sphere. Um, and by blasting out, I mainly mean having a presence on social media. I think in the beginning, I was just kind of worried about not sounding like an expert because I wasn't at all. But if you're a new agent, really what you should be doing is just touring as many properties as possible because that'll teach you about the inventory in your market. And then also recording and providing opinions of those listings that you're touring. And I probably got now I get a decent amount of business from my sphere through social media because I'm always touring and setting up polls. Do you prefer this over that? And people love it. And it's a subtle reminder that you are in real estate and that you know about real estate. So I would have done that way, way, way earlier. Like right when I get my license, start touring properties and post it on Instagram or TikTok, whichever one you use.
Yeah, yeah. I think social media has definitely been one of the big changes in real
Yeah.
estate that makes people's opinions, like you're saying, much more accessible, which can
Yes.
really help you if you're if you're looking for that right person who you want to mesh with, or if you're looking for a good property.
Yeah, for sure.
So, flip side of that, any big mistakes that you see people making that you think are really easily avoidable?
I think sometimes people are too negative on social media. I would try to avoid that. Like if you're touring someone else's listing and you're like, I hate this, that agent might see it. And I also, granted, negativity sometimes does sell if you can make it funny, but I would just kind of be wary of being too negative online, and maybe even too boastful online. I think that social media or real estate agents were kind of like peacocks and we're like so showy and we're like, look what I have, look at my car. And like, give me a break. Like, what are you doing for your client? You know?
Right, right. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's some good advice. Um,
Yeah.
do you have any favorite resources or tools? We talked about this a little bit earlier with the constantly learning, always learning, and you
Yeah.
favor books. Do you favor apps? Do you favor any kind of sites that can give a lot of info for people to kind of get up to speed and learn more?
For sure. I think when I first started off in real estate, I spent a lot of time on biggerpockets.com that and their podcast as well back in the day. That gave me a ton of information on the investing side, which is always very helpful. People are always interested in talking about real estate investing.
Hmm.
So I think that you need to become well versed in that, and that's a great resource. Audible is a favorite app, always listening to audiobooks. And then also a new one that I'm looking at more, I'm just on their newsletter, is Keeping Current Matters. They just have really good stats that you can easily share on social media or include on your newsletter. So those are my top three.
Nice. Well, appreciate you sharing those with everybody. When somebody is kind of ready to, they've maybe got a couple of sales under their belt and they're looking to really kind of start scaling up. What do you think are some great steps for people to take in that process?
That's a good question. I think it's really important to show your clients how much you value them.
Hmm.
So, big believer in pop buys, with something they would actually want, not like a here's an ice cream scoop because I
Yeah.
have the scoop on real estate. Like,
Yeah.
if you do that, that's okay. It's not my vibe. It probably works for you.
I can think
But
of somebody in my mind who would actually do that. But yeah, like
yes,
that's just their
and
sense
that's
of
all
humor
right.
as well, right?
Yes, yep, exactly.
So if that's your
But
brand, maybe that's a thing. But
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I love ice cream. So, yeah, really showing that you appreciate and value those past clients because they should be the pillars that kind of feed you your next referrals. And also just your sphere. Like you should be having coffees and lunches or happy hour with people that you met at some like a club you're part of, or maybe if you, because I grew up in this area, so I try to stay in touch with a lot of different people, not only because I'm extroverted and I like having a lot of connections, but it also does, people are like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a real estate agent. They're like, I know someone looking to sell. So you just need to be constantly not only in front of people on social media, but getting those face to face times with past clients and also people in your sphere.
Yeah. I think somebody told me a long time ago, you can be really bad at what you do, but if you tell everybody, you might actually be successful. But you can be great at it. And if you don't tell anyone, guaranteed to not be successful.
They're not going to know.
Yeah.
Yep.
They don't know that you do it.
Yep.
How will they
I
find
think it
you
is a
anyway?
fine line though, because I think so many people are like closed 18 million in deals. I don't know. It's just, it depends. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's too much. Sometimes you don't do it enough. So I think you have to be careful about that line
Yeah.
to walk over. Yeah.
Well, again, it's kind of reading the room, right? Like,
Yes.
you
Right
know,
back to where we started.
when
Yep.
somebody's just had a baby, maybe that's not the time to approach them and say, like when you're meeting that baby for the first time, hey, I got
Yeah.
a house for you because you're going to need a new place. Like
I know.
that's going to
Yeah.
overwhelm them. That's not.
It's not it. That's
Some
not it.
people
Yeah.
would try that for sure, though. But I guess
Yes.
that is part of the process of building and knowing when to bring those things, maintaining the strong relationships with those clients. How are what are some ways that you do that with? I mean, you talked about kind of going back to those people. How do you maintain those relationships and be ready when they're ready?
I honestly, I need to be better at it. I really do. I try to do one pop by a year at least. So that's the in person. What I've done lately is bags of popcorn,
Hmm.
um, like designer popcorn. It's really good. I end up eating like half the bags. It's pretty bad. And then I also do a holiday card. Um, And what I have done in the past, I kind of fell off this year, but I'm implementing it again, which people have found very helpful, is a Loom recording of me just giving them like a health check of it's for my buyers of their property that they purchased, I don't know, 1 year ago down to like 10 years ago. And then also showing them what they could rent that house for. So, because I don't want them to think that, oh, your house is worth this. Is it time to sell? Like, that's not what I'm trying to do here. If you do, great. But I also want to show you, you could still own this home. This is what average rents are for, and maybe move out and become that landlord or investor and start building that real estate portfolio. Because I do think real estate is just a fantastic method to growing wealth. So it's important to give them that information.
Yeah, I mean, every piece of property that I've purchased has gone up in value, so
That's great.
they don't
That's
tend to go
great.
down.
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and there are usually key exceptions to that you see coming. Um,
Yes.
so I mean, that it sounds like you've got that. You've got those pop-ins, you've got those gifts, you've got the Christmas cards. Is that kind of part of how you built your brand? And what would you describe as being your brand? I guess.
I think my brand is just being personable. Because I do, and I do call my clients. Like if I'm in the car for more than 20 minutes, I'll call at least one person. That's my rule for myself. But I genuinely do like keeping in touch with past clients. Like I've been invited to past clients' weddings, obviously housewarming and everything. But I just like at the settlement table, I'm gonna miss you. Like I know
Mhm.
it's like a goodbye in some sort of way, and I would say 99% of the time, I'm sad that I'm not going to see you as much as I did. So I think that that's just my brand.
Yeah, building relationships. I mean, it really seems like,
Really, yeah,
long-term, lasting relationships. That's a great
for
way to
sure.
set yourself apart, I think, from others.
Yeah.
Um, how about, maybe sometimes when things didn't go as planned, did you manage your way out of that? Did you lose that relationship? Were you able to salvage it?
I think it depends on what went wrong.
Hmm.
If it's something that went wrong on my end, I am absolutely upfront and apologetic for it and explaining why. And granted, like I have dropped the ball before. Not proud of that, but I still actually have maintained positive relationships because if you mess up, you need to own it instead of hide from it. I think that that's really unprofessional when people do that. When it's maybe a client wasn't treating me very well, which has happened too. That's probably like the 1% where I'm like, all right, congratulations, so happy for you, and then I don't really keep in touch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're just like, delete that contact. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I can definitely understand that. Yeah, I think, I've had a situation or two where somebody kind of buried some information, and, and I found out later. And on the flip side, I wasn't happy when somebody told me that, about something that I didn't want to hear, but I ended up being in a much better position than when when it was buried. So I think absolutely honesty and, that's, I think, part of a brand, like where, that you can be relied on because you're going to eat crow, so to speak, and share with them the bad news rather than have it buried and find out later.
for sure. Yep.
What are some of the proudest moments that you've had that that have come about in your career in working with these people and helping developers or homeowners get that property?
Um, I think I'm really happy when a seller comes to me and they need to buy either in order to move, because that I think is maybe the most stressful
Hmm.
situation is when a sale has to happen in order to buy, or like there's a chance that you'll be carrying two mortgages for 6 months. Like that's very scary.
Hmm.
So I think my proudest moments are when we have a really good plan in place, and we find the house that they like because we're already prepared to list the home. We've done the work that we need to do months in advance. Um, we're able to list as soon as they go under contract, and then hopefully sell by the time that they close, or go under contract by the time they get closed. And that has happened. I mean, happened 3 times this year. And it is also really, really cool when it's someone from your sphere. Like when it's more stressful for me because it's
Hmm.
just one extra level of like I am losing sleep. Because it's like my
Right, you're
dearest
like, I
friend
can't mess
is,
this up. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But that's honestly when I'm really proud of myself is when, I can save that stress for them and make it as seamless as possible. So
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of people in that position where you've got that window of time, and it is a small window sometimes.
it is. Yep.
That's
And
good to be able to
yeah,
get that
yep.
as
And I
stress free
carry
as
their stress
possible.
with me. Right. Yeah.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it seems like it. I mean, if you're having these relationships, with people from all these years ago, and you're still touching in, that's it seems like you really feel what they feel, and I think that
I do.
that's honestly some of the people I think who I've thought of as being successful at this do that as well. So, not that my opinion matters, but
It
it's the
does.
seller and buyer's opinion that matters in that case. Um, where do you see yourself going in the next 5 and 10 years? Where is your career going to go as you kind of go to that next decade?
That's a great question. Um, I I see a lot of past clients coming back and, having to sell. So I guess I see my side of the standard buy and sell growing just because that base has been set for this first 10 years of business. But then I also see the side of me doing more investments and development. So I think that I'm gonna try to figure out how to do both of those hand in hand. And I think honestly, what might be nice is I might be able to be a little bit more choosy for who
Hmm.
I have time to work with. Because I am also building a team, obviously of agents of similar caliber, but I might be able to like refer out some other buy and sell business, maybe ones that are like, oh, they want to look an hour and a half away. I'm like, well, I have someone for you. And then, leaving more time for family and also my development side of things. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it does. It does
Yeah.
really well. And I think, having a good team of people around you, whether you're in their brokerage or they're literally your team,
Yeah.
it sounds like
Yeah.
it's pretty natural next step for a lot of that, especially as you said, you've got that book of clients who already know you, who are probably going to come back to you. And that's a great place to be in,
Yeah.
which just shows that
Agreed.
you've been doing your job right.
Thanks.
What is is there kind of like a legacy that you'd like to leave in the world of real estate in DC, or, or the world?
That's a very deep question. Overall, I just want to make people happier. I know that's kind of basic, but gosh, the world is so stressful right now, and real estate transaction is can be so stressful for realtors on the other side and also your clients. So I just want to bring a little bit of light to everybody, make everything feel a little bit lighter. And that's kind of what I want the legacy to be. Be like, man, like she did make this better.
Yeah.
I'm not
Gosh,
going to be dragging you down, you
remember
know?
Molly? Yeah. That was great.
Yeah. But I want it to be more than like, oh, she was so nice. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh no, she brought light into my
That's
life.
nice.
I don't know. Yeah.
So, a lot of people have had some kind of a property. I mean, I've heard stories of people going into a property that they thought was haunted. I've heard people going to a place where, somebody is who doesn't belong there is there, and it's a frightening
Yes.
situation. Have you had any kind of really, situations that stand out, interesting, unusual, that you had to work
Hmm.
through as in the process?
I mean, I've dealt with people who are like borderline hoarders, or at least a tenant is a borderline hoarder, or just very messy. And that's always a challenge, especially if they are like truly hoarders. You can't be like, I'll bring in my cleaning crew and we'll clean this right up for you, no problem.
Right.
Because I
Yeah.
have done that. But if like they really like, no, these are my things, don't touch my things. I'm like, okay, we need to put a plan together. But I haven't had too weird of instances. I have been on a showing and then accidentally the seller was in the shower. Um,
Oh,
that was awkward.
yeah. A strange, unusual, and awkward. Yeah, we maybe should
Yes, exactly,
expand
exactly.
that.
Uh-huh. That's why I always knock very loudly whenever, I'm on showings, even if it's vacant, so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, catching somebody in the shower, not on my list today. Yeah.
No.
So if real estate wasn't the thing for you, do you think you would still be in nursing? Is that, one of those places that you could still, in a different world, picture yourself being in?
I think I was attracted to nursing because it wasn't a standard 9 to 5, and it was front facing, like,
Mhm.
people facing, 'cause I couldn't imagine being at an office, um, sitting at a desk or on my computer. You know, I need, like, the movement, I need to, be connecting with people. So I think in a different life, yeah, absolutely. That could have been something that I could have potentially thrived in. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, you definitely seem to thrive with that, connection with other people. And again, being that front facing, being that extrovert, having those, connections that you're making with people. And I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah. Thanks.
So what's something about you maybe that people don't know, but they really should. We get an opportunity to have you share that with people right now.
I feel like I'm a pretty open person, so people know I think a lot about me. Um, so fun facts are always a challenge for me.
It's like, no, I already told them everything.
I already told them everything about me, you know? Um, I I think like a fun fact that I tell my clients, and granted it is real estate connected, but like I own and manage 10 units myself, 10 rental properties, and that's just growing. So I do have a decent amount of experience there. I also did like a 3 mile swim race last month. That was challenging. But yeah, there's a and I own a dog named
Yep.
Dougley. So
Nice. All right, swimmer check. 3 miles, like that's definitely
3 miles. That was
that
rough. Yeah.
that's not a short swim. That's definitely a pretty fun and interesting um, factoid for sure. Now,
It was.
like, was that for a fundraiser? Was it just for a competition or?
It was. It was to raise money for cancer research. It was open water, and I swam growing up and in college, but I definitely wasn't very prepared for the 3 mile race. So I was like, my only goal is to not drown and not come in last. And I didn't. yeah, didn't do either of those.
There you go. So, hey, success.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
First, but
Yeah.
I've been a couple of, road races and,
Oh,
and
cool.
that was kind of my, just don't be last and, complete it. Like that's,
Finish it.
very,
Yeah.
very simple goal. So
Yes.
as we wrap up, things here, I think it's always fun to ask this question. And, you are in DC, and a lot of times people end up in places that are kind of interesting and, for a whole list of reasons. But if you could buy and live in a place, any property in the world, no limitations on price or location, etc., you know, you could have a villain hideout, you could have a mansion on a hill, you could have your own island. What would it be? Like, where would be the perfect place for Molly to live
Oh,
and
that's such a good
be in that
question.
paradise?
I mean, off break, I was thinking, oh, Portugal or somewhere overseas and beautiful and by the water. Um, but I also want something that's easy to get to,
Hmm.
you know, and that's not necessarily Portugal. Um, so the older I get, the more I love lakes. Like lake life is great. Um, so maybe something on like Lake Michigan or yeah, just something with a lake where we can hang out in a boat on the water. And I can also maybe drive to or fly in like an hour. So that'd be my answer because I just want ease of getting to there.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I could bring the lake that's near me just a little bit closer, but yeah,
Yeah,
I know what you mean about being on the water. For me personally, it's just a happy place to be. So
it
I can
is.
be
Yeah,
stressed, and I can go out there and just be like, you know what, for 2 hours, forgetting about the world and being on the water, and
right.
it's a wonderful thing.
It's great. Yeah.
And I think people need to find that. If you don't know, if you haven't found that yet, definitely find that thing. Whether it's a lake
For
or
sure.
that
Or
brings
the
you that
woods or a
relaxation.
city.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What is the well, I mean, we talked about the shower. Any other kind of funny or crazy kind of like weird things that, unusual things that have happened when you've been showing a property?
I mean, like I have granted these clients were friends, but I have definitely scared clients before, like hidden in the house and then said, "Oh, the seller told me the door is unlocked. I'm running a couple minutes late." And then they walk inside and yeah, I really like that was a hilarious moment. But honestly, other than that, I've worked with some weird people, but like
Hmm.
weird houses and weird, yeah. Nothing, like, sticks out at the moment.
There you go. No, I mean, hey, that could be a good thing, right? I mean, it takes
Right,
all kinds. Like everybody needs a roof over their head, and that means you definitely have some, some people who are kind of unusual and different there.
absolutely,
But
and
it's
I
good
love
that the
unusual.
property wasn't the one that was.
Right, exactly, exactly.
So now we know that you're on some social media. I've seen some videos of you. I've seen some of your stuff online. Where is a place that people can really kind of connect with you? Where are you most often on a place where people can find out about your work, find out more about you?
I would say I'm most active on Instagram, Molly Branson Realtor, and I am honestly most active on stories and not necessarily posting.
Hmm.
I think I need to get better at that, but my most engagement and messages are through stories.
Nice. All right. So we will make sure to share that with us as we send this out, into the world, because that basically brings us to the end. Molly, I really thank you for speaking with us today and letting people kind of get to know you and your journey in real estate. And, again, it's almost 10 years. You've been some, checked off some pretty nice boxes in there. I mean, the 30 under 30 being the youngest VP and at the time, and and letting people know kind of like, a little bit of a view into where you would be and that being on the water. And I think that's a great thing. So we'll wrap it up here. Again, thank you for joining us. That is going to conclude this episode of the Inner Circle podcast. And I hope everybody who is listening found something enlightening, some great takeaways. Again, some places that Molly goes to learn that might be helpful for you, and a way to take your real estate career to the next level. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Instagram at America's Inner Circle on all of those places. Again, thank you very much, Molly. And we look forward to hearing more from you and look forward to everybody joining us again next time.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Definitely been a pleasure.